Zels, 10 changes in the starting 15, 12 in the 23. How much has really changed with that result? Because he said it was going to be two different squads that would play. What's your gut feeling? Maybe Sasha dropping down to the bench from the original, Pollard back at 10 to kind of bring some leadership to that key decision-making role, and Willie Roux at 15. I don't know if he would have been in the original equation.
Yeah, I think if you look at the squad after that result last week, I think the biggest issue was the game management and bringing back a Centurion at fullback, two-time World Cup winner with ice in his veins, Handre Pollard at 10. It sends the message that the Boks are out to definitely play smarter rugby this week, manage the game better. And then looking across the rest of the side, obviously a couple of changes there. For me, the most interesting one is at lock. You know, we're assuming the Boks are going to go back to sort of play their standard sort of traditional game, power game. You'd think that Arceus, Neyman and Roux are maybe better suited to the way they played last week than, you know, this week you might look to bring in a guy like even Etzebeth and Loetiaga. So that's an interesting pick for me. We've got about 25 locks in the squad, so I'm guessing we're going to attack the line-out and get our line-out going and launch from there. And glad to see Grant Williams gets another go at this thing to show that he can play speedball, but he can also be a big contributor when we revert to power.
I think that the interesting thing with Grant for me is that they're giving him the combination with Pollard, which may point towards Eden Park as well, because you want that kind of pace around from the base of the scrum when you play the All Blacks. And I think Pollard, in his absence, has grown another arm and leg in terms of what happened at Ellis Park against the Wallabies. I like the fact that Willie's back. Damian Willemse looked short of a gallop. Fassi, I don't think quite took his chance there in terms of certainty, being at the ground. He just seemed very indecisive at times, whether to kick, whether to run. Maybe his natural instinct was to play a bit differently. The predetermined game plan obviously was to have a go early on, but they didn't quite have the experience, or they were seduced into the moment to actually continue to go that way. But obviously, Cheslin coming back, Kane Moody's a quality act. The big one for me is Damian Deolandi. You've got Pollard at 10, you've got Damian Deolandi at 12. You've got no issues in your backline, not when it comes to defense, when it comes to game management, when it comes to leadership. And we all know what Willie can do in terms of just playing the percentages, but also kind of kickstarting something just because of his creative brilliance. And, 100 test matches, he's been there and done it all before. Interesting one for me in the pack, Zels, is Sos at 7 flank. He looked short of a gallop as well at Ellis Park. He looked short of a gallop when he came off the bench in the July test. He plays for a club that he tackles all season in Japan. He's one of the guys that comes back from Japan and looks a bit more gassed than the rest. But if you look at players that, would be think they could be playing to secure their places and show that they still have something to offer the squad. We spoke about Bongi last week. Your views there? I would say that Sosi is one of them as well.
Yeah, look, I'm never going to doubt Sos. I mean, I'll probably be the guy that gets it wrong. He might be 3 tests too old and I'll still be touting him. I just think he's a guy that's always delivered and always seems to do well for the Boks, even when he's not at his peak condition. He's just such a reliable work effort kind of guy. So, I've got no qualms with him there. I think it's a big opportunity for a guy like Jean-Luc Dupree at 8 to throw his hat into the ring there as a guy who could potentially do this. And I think this is the opportunity that was created from last week's results. And one of the issues, again, from last week was the failure of the bench to really explode, the bomb squad to explode. I don't see that happening this week because of the absolute experience and quality you've got there. Even Etzebeth, Loetiaga, Kwagga Smith still in the mix. Kubit's run-up will bring some speed off the bench. And then Sasha Feinberg and Gomez Zulu, we all want to see him get on the field and do what he does best. So I think it's a great squad. I'm not sure it's our strongest squad, but I think we're going to see a big response this week, as I said earlier, and I've got the Boks to win this one comfortably.
Yeah, we'll get into who's going to win this one when we see that Aussie side a little bit later in the week. I know that you're euphoric, and I like to see that. I like to see you so psyched up and giving it to the Boks by 10 or more. Interesting for me, though, when you look what's on the bench in terms of hooker and prop. 2 youngsters, who one was going to be playing for Scotland potentially in a year and the other one potentially for Wales in 2 years. So Manus van der Merwe, replacement hooker, and Boan Venter. That's kind of also saying that he's got confidence in these two guys, pointing to a shifting of a guard, if not by the end of the Rugby Championship, then potentially by the end of the year and going into 2026 the great rivalry tour against New Zealand, where we play 3 test matches in South Africa, potentially a 4th in the UK. What I do like, you spoke about the interesting with Arceus Snyman and Roux is he's going to, I'm glad he's starting with that combination because it's very explosive, it's very athletic. And if things aren't going particularly well and it is raining, he then can, and he's never been shy to pull anyone in 30 minutes or 35 minutes. He then can introduce the most experienced lock pairing since Victor Matfield and Bucky's Buerta in Lut and Eben. So I think he's got that mix right. I'm glad he's resisted not going with Quibus and going with Grant Williams. I thought he may phone Evan Roux and ask him to get out of Hermanus and get to Cape Town, but that was maybe wishful thinking. But yeah, generally good to see Tommy the Toy back, but I'm glad Wilker's still in the mix. So I think you've got a side that has enthusiasm and they got some zip for that first 40. But when it comes to the crunch, if it is an arm wrestle, geez, you want to arm wrestle the last 40 minutes of a test match with Eben, with Lut, with Kwagga to add that explosiveness, and then obviously a 9 like Kobus Reinach who's been there and done that. And I think if I look at that mix, you'll probably see Sasha introduced more at 15 than at 10. And if Damien Dialandi, say the legs aren't there because he's coming back from injury, you may even see Pollard shift to 12 and Sasha then to 10. So I think he's got some nice options. But it's again, a week ago we were looking at every squad and thinking we can take on the All Blacks 3 times in one afternoon with 3 different squads. You take a big one and all of a sudden the 23 doesn't look quite as powerful, even though it's the same players that are there.
Mate, I've got no doubts in these Boks. I think they're going to bounce back. I think last week was a bad day at the office and a perfect storm in many respects. I think they will have learned some big lessons, and I think we're going to see those play out this week. You mentioned Hooker a couple of times. Hooker is a big omission from the squad. Rassie said that he was the guy that he wanted to field in a game like this, and surprising that he's not in the mix, maybe a casualty of that result. Or maybe he is the secret weapon we're going to unleash at Eden Park. I don't know. I just want to see the kid get out there, but you can't knock this squad. I mean, Kane and Moody on the one wing and Ches and Colby, that's wings in abundance there. So I think the power of De Allender back in the midfield with Jesse Creel there and the steady decision-making from Handre and Willie is going to put the Boks in a great space.
And then I also think if no Peter Steph Toy, no Sia Khaleesi, when they are fit, they're going to always be in the mix. It does create a wonderful opportunity for that next tier to step up. It's, again, greater leadership responsibilities for Jesse Creel and ownership again with senior players. And he's given them back that ownership to say, you may have got it wrong last week. You've got a chance to rectify it 7 days later. Even though they can't get the result back from Ellis Park, they do get a form of redemption going into a test match in Cape Town. And we talk about Ethan Hooker. It's like you've just got to wonder, are there areas of his game that they feel are not quite up to international standard now that they've worked with him, but they believe so much in his potential? Or is it that they are taking this kid to New Zealand and we're going to have this big physical presence on the one wing, and it would mean New Zealand would have to prepare differently for a Bok back 3 that has one big bruiser, 6'4", 110 kilos, and not just great steppers. So I think that may still be a little bit of Rassie mind games. I've been seeing him at press conferences. He's been humble. He's been jovial. But I think he knows he got it horribly wrong, as did his coaches at Ellis Park. And don't cry over spilt milk. Just try and fix it. So I'm also happy that there's not a conservatism in the way they picked this one. There's a realism.
Exactly.
There's an absolute realism. But the primary one there is, how much I rate Sasha FM. I know how much you rate him. But Pollard, everyone wants to always put him out to pasture in the games that don't matter. And then when it goes a cropper, he's the guy we call back and say, Clutch, come do your thing. So I'm glad he's there at 10, but really glad that Willie LaRue's there as well.
No, 100%. I don't think we're going to have any issues with some of the decision-making this weekend. Definitely in safer hands there. Maybe a little bit less flashy. And you might not see as much air under the ball and width from the Bok attack, but I think it's going to be brutally effective. And I think the Boks are going to control this game.
All right, we'll talk on Thursday about the battle of the breakdown where we got cleaned out, the lineouts that were a shambles, the fact that we hardly scrum. That's going to be for the discussion and debate when we do our full preview, when we also acknowledge that the All Blacks are playing a second test against Argentina, that there is a Curry Cup and there is a women's World Cup that starts with the Springboks against Brazil on Friday evening. And go to our WhatsApp channels, the Avant sponsorship, the collab. If you buy a bottle and you get the prediction right from Smitty and Gregan, which is that the first try, it doesn't matter from which side it will come, will be a pushover try be that from a scrum or from a line-out maul. You double your odds. Put Keo Zels there on your code. And remember, if you buy with the Keo Zels code, you stand the chance to go to Durban to watch the test match against Argentina, to spend a night with Butch James, Zels, myself. Zels, you're coming to Durban, baby. And
Not happening.
Raucous time. And maybe don't get food poisoning when you're in Durban, as I always tend to do, and have a lekker time. But the code is Keo Zels, and you can only be a winner with us and a bunt. Just like the box Zels can only be a winner on Saturday, but we're going to tell the people on Thursday why they'll win and where they'll win.